Here and Now, the program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Coming up, a tribute to one of the most influential Black journalists of our time. We're sitting down with Susan Taylor, the former editor-in-chief of Essence magazine. She not only empowered Black women, she also helped shape Black culture, becoming a driving force in the beauty industry and beyond. Her passion for philanthropy led her to create the National Cares Mentoring Movement to focus on healing trauma in our children. That's all ahead on this special half-hour edition of Here and Now. Her work became a source of empowerment. Susan Taylor, former editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, spent 3 decades promoting positive images of Black women and uplifting Black culture. Recently, she sat down with us to talk about her remarkable journey. You are always so gracious. It is one of the reasons that we all love you. I have to ask you, at 24, you started your own cosmetics company.
Okay.
How did you have the guts to do that at 24? Single mother, and you said, I'm going to do this. And that is eventually how you sort of landed at Essence.
That's exactly right. You know, I think I'm a person who believes that any need can be met and fulfilled. And the ones that I think that I could have some power in helping to move along or to close a gap, I want to dive in there, whether I'm leading it or just being a part of it. And we're talking about a time when Black women, women who were beyond pale skin, could not go into any five and dime store, as we used to call them, or department store and find cosmetics, find makeup that suited our complexions. And so I said, I'm going to start a custom blended, line. And I called up a bunch of chemists. I spoke to them about a golden undertone that most Black people have, and they were intrigued by it. Created the formulations, and I had a little place in the Bronx called the Face Place on 165th Street, and women would come in and I would mix the makeup and they would purchase it. So that's what led me to Essence, yes, and they heard about it, went down for an interview with Ida Lewis, the then editor-in-chief, and she gave me a shot.
Yeah, she gave you a shot, and you ran with that shot. So how long was it between that job? Was it beauty editor, I think?
That's right.
And before you became the primary, the editor-in-chief?
Well, it went from beauty editor to fashion and beauty editor, and then editor-in-chief 10 years.
By that time, at least you thought you knew what you knew, right?
No. Being fashion and beauty editor is far apart from being the editor-in-chief of the magazine. Because as fashion and beauty editor, I created the covers, the fashion, and maybe like a 15, 16-page portfolio and covers. But I was not involved in the guts of the magazine, those hard stories. And there was resistance. There was resistance when Ed Lewis offered me the job. At first I said, no, thank you. That's well beyond anything I could do. I hadn't gone to college yet, It wasn't a job that I wanted. I loved being the fashion and beauty editor because we didn't have a full representation of Black beauty. And it gave me the opportunity to say, oh, can you come up to the magazine if you're interested? I'd love for us to photograph you. I'd love for you to be on the cover. This is well before celebrities dominated all the covers. And it gave us the opportunity to really show the full breadth of Black beauty, from a Margarita Razme who's pale skin with blue eyes, to Phyllis Yvonne Stickney, who is chocolate and gorgeous.
So what was it that made you finally say, I'm ready to be in charge of the whole thing?
Well, don't tell my husband. Well, he knows. I was going to say don't tell my husband because I'm married to the best man I know. I called up my guy that night. Mel knew this. Let me call his name. Columbia University, lawyer, MBA. And I said, this is a joke. Guess what? I just had dinner with Ed Lewis, and he's talking about me stepping into the editor-in-chief's role. That's a joke. He said, you have exactly what Black women need. And there are times when you need people who you believe in to believe in you. And when you hear that, it can touch your heart if it's coming from the purity of another person's heart. And it was. And I went into the office the next day and went into Ed Lewis's office, leaned on his desk, and said, I'm ready.
What is it that you wanted, that you thought when you went into the job, you said, okay, we're going to have plenty of fashion and beauty, but Black women deserve a little bit more than that. So what was your game plan? Or did you develop that game plan over time?
It wasn't that Black women needed more. I think, Sandra, it was that I was more the reader than any of the editors who were highly educated, who were journalists, who were phenomenal. And there I was, I'm a single mother. I'm raising my daughter. I was married for 3 years before our daughter was born, and then she was 6 weeks old when I was on my own. And so I understood the struggles of single mothers, and a lot of the women we were serving, happened to be single mothers. I understood, the challenge of being married and then unmarried and scuffling and trying to keep the roof over your head and food on the table. And I was driven by what I knew, not by what only Rita Mail was saying, what I felt, women needed. And the phenomenal team. I'm a team builder. I'm not going to take full credit for anything. It's really having fine minds around you and being humble enough to listen and to allow people to have their say without shutting them down.
But that team needed a phenomenal leader, and they got it. I mean, I think for a lot of people, I said this to you earlier, you cannot say Essence without saying Susan Taylor. You can't say Susan Taylor without saying Essence. Were you surprised that you did become such a representative of the brand? I saw myself, as you mentioned, no matter who the Black woman was, she saw herself
Right.
in the magazine, in addition to wonderful articles about our health. And, when did you suddenly realize that people were gushing about you? I mean, look, I remember that, but in the spirit, I think I carried In the Spirit around with me forever. Because you just spoke to me. When did you realize that you really had something that women were clamoring to hear more of and to be a part of? And don't you tell me that you did not realize that.
I have to tell you the truth that
You d-
when you're working and building, you're not looking at what you've built, you're looking at what you're going to build. And if you're working on a magazine, you probably have 4 issues going at the same time: the one you're putting to bed, the one that you're writing, the one that you're editing, and the one that you're assigning. So I never really took time to think about that. I would speak around the country and people would receive me well. But I think the accolades, I'm learning how to receive them. Because you know what we do as women.
Oh,
Oh, no, no,
I'm right here
don't
now
count,
going,
please. No,
don't
no, no.
tell me.
That's not me. Oh, thank you. And we move on to something else. I love your dress. Oh, it only costs $20.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we do.
Right. Rather than accepting. And the way I look at it now, I am so proud that I had the wherewithal to tell the truth about my life. Because that's not what magazine editors were doing at the time. We were writing about what was in the magazine. Marsha Gillespie, who preceded me, wrote about the social environment, the political environment, and she was absolutely phenomenal. And I built on what Marsha created. But I have to tell you that I was like, what am I going to write about? I hadn't gone to college. I can't do what Marsha did, so I didn't want to write an editorial. And Ed Lewis said, you're going to be the editor-in-chief of the magazine. You have to write one. So I said, let me write about what I know. Let me write about myself. Not myself so much, but spirituality and the path that we are on, trying to move toward wholeness, not understanding that we're already there and that life is challenging no matter who you are, how much money you have, no matter, what your circumstances are, that, there are times when there's laughter and tears and joy and sadness. And I said, I'm going to tell the truth about those things.
So people were really responding to the fact that they felt as if you were actually writing about their lives too.
I think so.
Are you proud of what you managed to build with your phenomenal team at Essence? I mean, you've just a legion, you and the magazine, a legion of devoted fans that felt like it represented who and what they were.
Extremely proud. Extremely proud. I mean, I take a bow, but I'm holding hands, with the large group of people who have to bow down to the audience that served us by subscribing and writing to us and correcting us and telling us the truth about what was working and what was not working. It was really like a beautiful kind of back and forth building of a relationship. I felt like I knew the Essence readers. They believed that they knew me, that they knew us, Very proud of what we were able to do. And I'll tell you, the reason that we were so free was because on the business side, they never dictated. They never once said, this is what you should do. You know, Ed Lewis one day said to me, I hope you can put, Jesse Jackson on the cover. It's when he was running in 1984, that first presidential run. And I said, it's already done. It's already done. It's the only thing in all those years of leading Essence that was ever asked of me or any of the other editors by the business side. And I think it's that kind of freedom that allows you really to build for the audience you serve.
Also, you knew how important that was to the community. So it became really not about what you wanted, or it's what the community needed, actually, I think.
You're
You
right.
responded to
And this is
that.
what I want to do. We were so proud. It was such an incredible moment. And he was so important in the growth of Essence.
It's hard to imagine today's environment, media environment, economic environment. Would an Essence work today?
Right. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Social media, there's so much online. The environment has changed dramatically. Essence didn't really have competition. There's a lot of competition out there today.
And
Ebony was its
everywhere.
own thing. And the Jet, as the folks called it, Jet
I
magazine,
know.
we waited for it.
Yep.
That's how we knew what was going on in
And
Black
stacked them up in a
America.
corner
Absolutely.
like it was a library book.
That's right. But, Essence didn't really have competition. And it was a time when, Black women, we were coming into our own. We were appreciating our beauty, our hair, our lips, our bodies, and that hadn't happened before like that. And Essence came along, it was 1970, the height of the Black Power movement. And we seized every moment to create a stage upon which Black beauty and intelligence and ferocity and what we had built could be reflected.
Did you have any inkling of how big your life would get? Your life is made big, I think, by the people's lives you touch. And you managed to touch millions of lives in ways for a lot of them they can't even imagine. That's a big life, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
I hear it continuously now. And it moves me, it touches me, and I receive it. But I have to tell you, when we were building, I never thought about it. It was, how can we say, oh, here's a story. Oh, guess what I saw today? Oh, this is what somebody told me. That's a piece that we need to cover, that we need to find the right reader to really amplify so that we can understand. Essence was a lot about our understanding ourselves and the journey that we were on, and that we weren't on it alone, that there's a history. And Marsha Gillespie really taught us that had to be honored, that we had to really understand the women who came before us, what we were building upon, what that struggle was. And I think it filled our hearts with gratitude and pride. And, it was, in many ways, the work was easy because it was for us.
Mm-hmm.
Today, in this environment, there is so much noise, so much competition, so much mean-spiritedness. We weren't dealing with mean-spiritedness.
Yeah.
But today, there's a lot to not say because you're afraid that somebody's going to try to take you down, put you off the air, shut you up. And we didn't have that challenge.
What do you think is the lasting legacy of Essence? Not just of Susan Taylor, but I guess I would think part of the legacy is just the millions of women who took something from those pages.
I think the lasting legacy of Essence is that it's a record. It's a record of a point in time that will never be forgotten, because out of that magazine grew the Essence television show, Essence Eyewear, Essence Hosiery, the Essence Awards, and the Essence Music Festival, which continues on beautifully and brilliantly. So much came from just wanting to and knowing how to serve our people. And there was a hunger. There was a hunger for what was being delivered. And I think the legacy is really that Essence was true to the community. It was true to the culture. It not only carried the culture, it created the culture.
And interestingly enough, Essence wasn't the only place where you found yourself serving the community. Katrina hit, and you immediately said, we have to do something. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the cause that is near and dear to your heart and that you've spent the last 2 decades working on. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
After leaving Essence magazine, Taylor created the National Cares mentoring movement, turning her focus to underserved Black children. You were not too worn out to take on another major cause, which grew out of Hurricane Katrina. Talk to me a little bit about what it is you were hoping to accomplish then.
Hurricane Katrina devastated, as we know, New Orleans. And what it did also, Sandra, was it pulled the covers off of poverty. We hadn't seen it, revealed in that way. Poverty was in Africa. It was in the Caribbean. It was in other places. And I just said, this is our home, the home of the Essence Music Festival at the time. We cannot go back into that community without doing something for the children. A lot of the children were abandoned. A lot of them lost their parents, and they were on their own, living couch surfing, as they told me. And so I have to tell you that, we got some money, about $200,000, gave $100,000 to the Urban League, $100,000 to the NAACP, went into Houston, which is where many of the people had evacuated to, pulled the people together. They hadn't seen each other. And I just said, what we have to do is create something that's going to say to the tens of thousands of people who come to the Essence Festival that you have to go back to your community and secure the children. Secure the children, not just the ones here in New Orleans, but children across the country who are struggling and suffering. And we, in many ways, are their greatest hope. So that gave birth to Essence Cares, which gave birth to the National Cares Mentoring Movement.
I would think that when you started it and when you focused it specifically on the mentoring, and that things changed. It feels like even with the work, the need got greater because the problems got deeper. Have you found that?
Yes. Yeah, you are spot on. I've never even heard it put in that way, but you are spot on. This is a different world today. What our children are contending with social media, with the pullback from resources that people, because we're really talking about young people in poverty, who are struggling in under-resourced schools, who are going home to overwhelmed parents, who have overwhelmed administrators and teachers in those schools, and dangerous communities surrounded by relentless violence. That is not the way that I grew up in Harlem or Queens. What we're bringing is healing. I didn't even say that word. That's what we're bringing. You cannot expect young people who are growing up in poverty, because poverty hurts, to step out of poverty without healing the trauma that living in poverty causes. And that's how we began creating our affiliates. And now they're in 58 cities across the country and doing magnificent work.
Part of me wants to ask you, you're not tired? It doesn't feel like you get tired. This is a major project that you're working on, and I know that you have partners in it, so you're not doing all of the work yourself. There is no slowing down for you, is there?
Yes. I am trying to slow down, and you're going to meet people who are helping me to slow down. It's a lot of work, and I don't have the capacity that I once did, I'm 80 years old, and I'm not trying to be 35 or 45 or even 65 again. I want to put my feet up. I really want to continue to raise money for the National Cares Mentoring Movement, because you can't do this work without resources. You have to pay people. You have to have a staff, a team that is willing to get out there and do the work, and who are passionate, a team that is passionate about this work. And so I am tired, but I'm not too tired to keep moving forward.
A caring team dedicated to addressing trauma-related issues while also connecting Black youth across the country with committed mentors. Renee Daniel Flagger is the president of the National Cares Mentoring Movement. How important is it having a Susan Taylor be the founder of this and also so committed to making sure it's successful?
It is extremely important because Susan started this work with her heart. She comes from a place of love. So that literally sets the tone for the organization.
And these partner organizations, a lot of them, you're all kind of doing the same work in the same arena. So being able to partner, I guess, it sort of intensifies the effort that you're making.
I would say that, but I would also say what makes the National Cares Mentoring Movement unique is not just bringing in the mentors, but it's the programming that we provide. And we also help other organizations with mentors. We provide the largest percentage of African American mentors into communities that need them the most. So we partner with them, but with our programs, we also provide mentors, and the wellness component, that healing-centered wellness component, is the thing that really makes it unique. You know, it's great to have a mentor. Mentors are so very important to the development, to even adults, but especially to children. It's the focus on making sure that we are trauma-informed, healing-centered, and that we're going in with psychologists and psychiatrists to do the work of making sure that not only are we giving them the tools that they need to thrive, but we're also helping them heal the traumas that come with poverty.
How much pressure is it to know how much she loves this and feel like, okay, I'm going to be the standard bearer and the torch bearer going forward. We got to get this right.
Oh, it's pressure. It's pressure, but it's a great pressure. It's the type of pressure that reminds me every single day to make sure that I'm tapping in, reminds me every single day that the foundation that was created is the thing that I will be able to stand on to do the work that I'm expected to do. It's the foundation that helps me remember that the most important person in this organization is the young person that we're serving, that one young person. It's all of them, but it's also that one person. Because when you think about that one child's story, that one child's journey, it allows you to really connect in a way that's not about numbers, but all of these young, individual, amazing, brilliant young people is one person whose life that we want to change. And if we can scale that and do that on a major level where we have a lot of those one people to serve, it makes you remember what you're here for and why we're here and why this entire organization was started.
This is not just a job.
Stephen Powell is CARE's Chief Programs and Partnerships Officer. Stephen, you are in charge of the programs and partnerships.
Yes, and oversight of our affiliate leaders as well.
And how important is that network of organizations to the work that you do?
It's critically important. So when we say that we're the nation's leader in the recruitment, training, and deployment of African-American mentors to support organizations that are in need, the first question is, who are those organizations? Where are those mentors coming from? So we have a list of strategic partners that we source for our mentors. Some of those organizations include the American Nurses Enterprise, the Association of Black Psychologists, Delta Sigma Theta, the Links, Jack and Jill, the National Black Child Development Institute, the National Medical Association. And these are all entities that we get either resources from that we need for our programmatic work, or we can recruit mentors from to support our young people.
The work that you guys do around trauma is extra. And it's not something that a lot of organizations were doing before. Talk to me about how that is important to being successful at this.
Well, in 2010, we convened a brain trust of a cross-section of different leaders from around the country to help create a healing protocol, which is our curricula. It's called A New Way Forward, Healing What's Hurt in Black America. And one of the brain trust members, the late, great Harry Belafonte, said, we can't heal what's hurting our community until we heal what's hurting ourselves. So it allowed us to really look at, in order for people to support young people, we need to make sure that we're dealing with some of the traumas that they've been dealing with, whether it's coming from unsafe neighborhoods or poverty, whatever the case, we have to make sure that we're tapping into that. And one thing that I've heard quite often is there are not enough men mentoring. And when I think about my own path, I lost my father at the age of 5, and I am driven to do this work because of informal mentorship, what I got from peer mentors from high school, my college coach. So understanding that informal mentoring can help to birth something in a person to do the work, but also making sure that people understand that pain can be directly connected to your purpose.
Look, all I say is it's Susan Taylor. So if she asks you to do something, you're going to do it. And I just wonder for you, what it means to you to be a part of something that started from her heart, and based on your background, it almost sounds like she was speaking directly to you, the things that she wanted to accomplish for young people in this country, and how you feel about that.
I feel like it's a divine assignment. As a matter of fact, I know it's a divine assignment. And if you look at sports, championship teams are made when everyone knows their position and their assignment. So when I look at what Susan has contributed to society, the way that she opens up her Rolodex for community to ensure that everyone can benefit from that is just a beautiful thing to see. So I feel like we work with an earth angel.
Your legacy, I think, is going to be really one of service.
That's why we're here. By whatever name we call the divinity, God, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, the creative intelligence in the universe created us. I think that we are the eyes, the hands, the arms, the feet of our Creator. And that we're here to learn, and this is the hard part, learn how to take care of ourselves, preserve the gift of life, and then to give from the overflow, to make sure that, we're taking care of the needy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Here and now, we'll be right back.
This year marks the 20th anniversary of the National Cares Mentoring Movement and Susan Taylor's 80th birthday. At a star-studded gala in New York City, guests celebrated her impact.
Had I not seen myself on the covers of those magazines, I don't think I'd be here today.
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing God's work. We love you. Happy birthday.
When we were younger, she was the epitome of everything we understood about grace and elegance and wisdom, kindness. And she's continued to be that from Essence to Cares.
That's it for this special edition of Here and Now. Thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of today's show, you can watch at abc7ny.com/here and now, or listen to our podcast wherever you subscribe. If you'd like to comment or share your story, email us at hereandnow@wabc.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Sandra Bookman. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Looking for us. Looking for us.
Happy birthday, Sora Taylor!
80, huh? 80, baby. Birthday to you.
She wanted me to pray, not preach.
Birthday